ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz, and this is the Kaged Review. And this is going to be a review for WWE BackLash for, May 6th, 2018. And part of this is going to be a review. There is part of this that's going to be a bit of a rant, and I'll get to that and I'll explain why. Part of this show was very, very good. Other parts of this show were, I don't know, they weren't great for me. Some of them were actually terrible as far as booking decisions. And it actually led to quite the Twitter war, and I'll get into that also. But I'm going to start the review. We start on the pre-show with Bayley and Ruby Riott, and I thought this was a pretty good match. Bayley, it looked like at some point early on in the match, hurt something, and it looked like she was really struggling. And it's hard because these people put their bodies through hell day in and day out. They're on the road all the time, and the schedule is absolutely crazy, especially lately. So, it just looked like she was really struggling. Something had happened, and maybe she exacerbated an old injury. But you could definitely see that there was points where she was really in pain. She kept grabbing her neck. She did an elbow off the top rope onto Ruby Riott, and it took her a few seconds to cover because, you could see her cringing in pain, and she instantly grabbed her shoulder up by the neck. So, I kind of felt bad for her because, you don't want anybody to have to deal with that kind of pain, even though this is, as they say, not ballet. At the end, though, they did a few spots where the rest of the Riott squad were interfering, and Bayley had to deal with that, and then, of course, Ruby Riott gets the win. So, overall, good match. They kind of did the heel thing pretty well. Dealing with the interference spots, that was a good way to go. So, no complaints there. And then you get into the main show. And it starts right away with The Miz versus Seth Rollins. And I have to say, as far as style goes, I've always liked The Miz on the microphone. I think he's absolutely just magic on the mic. He gets genuine heel heat in a day where that's virtually impossible because everybody knows what wrestling is nowadays. And unfortunately, that does take some of the fun away from it because there are a lot of people who think they know everything about the wrestling business. I'm not one of those people. I just, we kind of have some understandings that, okay, it's not real as in fighting, but they do take heavy impacts, but it's scripted endings and things like that. But having said all that, I'm not a big fan of The Miz stylistically in the ring. He has this kind of brawler type. And I've always felt that, to have the big brawler type, you need to be the big body type. So that kind of clashes a little bit. But having said that, he actually did, an amazing job in the ring tonight. I was super impressed with The Miz. Seth Rollins, I've always loved. I think he is great in the ring. He's got a lot of energy, a lot of very cool moves. So I really can't say enough good things about Seth Rollins as far as that goes. And I will say that I'm really happy to see all the love he's getting from the fans. His hard work is really showing by the fans' appreciation. Like when he comes out, they're ruckus at times lately. And that's very cool to see. It's really cool to see one of the guys that, can cut a decent promo, who is hellacious in the ring, kind of get those accolades. I think that's very cool. But The Miz really held his own here. He really did. He had some really good spots, and the pacing of the match really kind of blew me away because I expected Seth Rollins to have to carry the match a little bit. And it's really not a knock towards The Miz. I think he's good. Like I said, stylistically, it's literally just a style thing with me. That's it. But that wasn't the case. Seth Rollins didn't have to carry the match. I mean, it was legitimately back and forth and very good all the way through. So I I was really happy with that. At the end, there was there was a section there where Seth Rollins does this really quick turnaround into the curb stomp and gets the win. So Seth Rollins retains. After that was Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. And this is, of course, the Raw Women's Championship. And I've always kind of stated that I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan, and I'm going to be clear here right at the beginning when I start talking about not being a fan of somebody's in-ring work. I don't know these people personally. It's not a personal judgment. It's not. I only go by what I see in the ring. That's the only thing I talk about. But I have noticed that Nia Jax at times, she gets tired very quickly in the ring. And when she does, she gets sloppy. It's hard to control somebody's weight when you're trying to suck wind in. And for that reason, there's been a lot of botches in her matches and a lot of things where she's just out of place and things like that. And so I haven't been the biggest fan of Nia Jax in-ring work. I just haven't. Tonight, I didn't think she did that bad, though, honestly. I thought she was where she needed to be. All I get to pay attention to as a fan, not ever being a wrestler, is are they in the right spots? Does it look dangerous? Are they putting other people's health and well-being at jeopardy? Those are the things I pay attention to in the matches with the people I don't like, because that to me is honestly what's important. But I'm happy to say that this match was actually pretty damn good. Alexa Bliss did a lot of, David versus Goliath scenario where she's trying to chop down the bigger woman and, successfully making it look like Alexa Bliss was going to actually get the job done. And had some really good spots. The DDT onto the steps. And I like the way they started out with her trying to immediately go for the legs and, doing the quick fire strikes. I think that was very cool. It was probably the right way to go. And at the end, Alexa Bliss is on the top rope. She goes for Twisted Bliss, gets caught, and then Nia drops Alexa Bliss into the Samoan drop and gets the win. I was not hating this match, and I've always said that I try to give people credit when it's due, and I always try to be fair. And this was not a bad match. I've been kind of vocal about Nia Jax in the past, but I give people their due. If they get better, if they improve, I acknowledge it. And I've always tried to do that because nobody's perfect. It's a hard business, I'm sure. I was in semi-professional mixed martial arts for a while, and it plays hell on your body. It does. So I can imagine what these people go through, because they're taking some hellacious shots and they're always on the road. It's got to play hell on them. So I give everybody all due credit for what they do. I really do. So with that, you have a backstage interview with Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe, I think, personally for me, is really good at promos. He's able to convey his emotions very well. I mean, unfortunately, the character is kind of one-dimensional. He's always pissed off. He's always, got the angry man vibe going on. But he sells it well. So, I mean, it's wrestling. It's not a fucking movie. Things like that I try to keep in mind, because sometimes I think we as fans, including myself, do expect too much. But yeah, Samoa Joe, he has this great promo where he's talking about how Roman Reigns is, the loser and he's going to beat him tonight. Pretty good. And then you get into a match with Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy. United States Championship match. And, I mean, you've got two future Hall of Famers easily. One possibly a first ballot. Randy Orton, I don't know. It's a weird place in his career, I'm sure, because I don't think he's lost a step at all. I think he's just as good as he's ever been in the ring. Um, One of the things that I like about Randy Orton over a lot of the people in WWE right now is he's one of those kind of somewhat old school guys. I mean, he's a little bit newer than the likes of Triple H, Stone Cold, The Rock, but he was still around in that era at the tail end of it. And I mean, the guy's really good at telling a story in the ring. He's really good at the ring psychology part of it. He can really sell himself. I actually do really like his matches for the most part. Jeff Hardy is, well, he truly is kind of an enigma because he's somebody I wouldn't expect WWE to just jump behind and get, this huge push for Hardy, which I love. I've always loved Jeff Hardy. I've always loved his no fear, death-defying, risk-taking style that he's had. And in saying that, you want to talk about somebody who's put their body through hell. Jeff Hardy has to be at the top of the list. Some of the bumps this guy has taken has been unreal. So the match itself, it was good. I don't know that there was anything that really stood out. And I think at times Jeff, at this point in his career, the bumps have gotten to him a little bit, and it does look like he's really favoring some things a little bit more. He's got more aches and pains than he used to, and I think that shows, especially toward the end of the match. But it was a really cool finish. Jeff Hardy, he hits the twist of fate really quick. They called it out of nowhere, and then he gets up really quick and does a swanton bomb, gets a clean pin on Orton. So there you go. Nothing to hate about this one. I think that there was not really anything that, like I said, really jumped out as a standout moment for me, but it was entertaining for sure. And then you get this bit where Elias is in the ring and he's talking to the Jersey crowd and he's talking about how he's going to do this performance. And then he gets interrupted by the New Day. They come down. Big E's got a big old marching band, bass drum. Kofi Kingston's got some cymbals. And Xavier Woods has got this big ass trombone, of course. And they're wanting to do a rock concert with Elias. Of course, Elias is like, no, I'm a one-man band, blah, blah, blah. And then he's about to go back into his shtick. New Day is still at ringside, and he gets interrupted again by Aiden English, who starts singing and introduces Rusev. And they kind of rinse repeat where, they're trying to do something, and Elias is like, I'm doing my own thing, and he goes back to JoJo. He's like, you know what to do. She calls Elias again, lights go out. And then No Way Jose interrupts. And at this point, I already feel like the segment has gone on too long. Like, big pay-per-view, and it's kind of a comedy segment, but kind of falling flat for me, to be very honest. I wasn't really feeling it. I mean, it was, okay, what's happening at first, and then you're like, oh, well, this is all they're doing. Not that impressed. So No Way Jose comes down with his conga line, and at this point, Elias is getting really angry. He's like, cut the music, I'm trying to do something, and goes back into the whole, let me do this for what is now the third time. And then Bobby Roode's music hits. Bobby Roode is actually already in the ring behind Elias, hits him with the glorious DDT, and then kind of points over towards No Way Jose. They start the whole conga line. Titus Worldwide is out there with them. Breezango. And so they all start dancing their way to the back, and Bobby Roode doing his little herk and jerk dancing. But I don't know. Like, I understand they were trying to go for something funny and maybe entertaining. I just felt like it was too long. If they were going to put something like this in there, keep it short, sweet, simple, to the point. This lasted I mean, what, 5-10 minutes? Probably closer to 10. Just not that big a deal for a pay-per-view like this. After that, Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass. This is a match they've been building. Of course, Big Cass sneak attacking Daniel Bryan. And I really liked the whole, again, David and Goliath concept here, where they're really utilizing Daniel Bryan to the best ability. At least for this match, where, you know, he immediately starts chopping down Big Cass. He really goes to work on the legs. He goes into the corner and does a lot of body shots. And Daniel Bryan's an amazing worker. He really is. That's why the fans love him so much, is because he is such a well-rounded performer. He can mat wrestle. He's very technically sound. He's a high flyer. He can be a brawler. Daniel Bryan sells everything as good as he can possibly do it. And he's very good at selling and working the crowds, which makes him kind of a double threat in the ring. So I'm going to skip past a lot of this match because, I mean, it was literally, you know, Daniel Bryan trying to chop down Big Cass, and then of course Big Cass gets his big hit and does the Power Man thing for a while. The end of it was really cool, where Daniel Bryan grabs him by the arm, tries to get him in the yes lock, and, you know, Big Cass is big. So, you know, Daniel Bryan's fighting his other arm for a minute, and then just goes to clubbing Big Cass in the head with these forearms, which was really cool, and it actually made him look pretty vicious, Daniel Bryan. So, I mean, it was a really, really good spot, and then he hits him, wraps him up in the yes lock. Big Cass taps out really quick, and then after the match, Big Cass, of course, is going to attack Daniel Bryan for making him look weak. You know, hits him with the big boot, and that was that. Now comes the match where it's going to be quite the rant. Charlotte versus Carmella. I've been very outspoken lately about Carmella and the fact that she is the women's champion for SmackDown, and she cannot wrestle. Her matches consist of slapping, hair pulling, running away screaming, and super kicks. Sometimes they're decent looking super kicks, sometimes they're kind of awkward actually. She is not a wrestler. And I'm going to revert back to everything I was just saying about Daniel Bryan. He's technically sound. He's a high flyer. He's a brawler. He knows how to work the crowd. Now, fast forward into this very next match, this woman's champion is none of that. She has no talent in the ring. She is not technically sound whatsoever. She cannot do any high flying that I've seen. She's not done one technical move on the mat that I have seen. And so, it really does bother me that this woman is the women's champion. WWE has put their stamp of approval on this person who can't wrestle at all. And it's not entertaining. Like I said, slapping, hair pulling, running away, screaming. It's called WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. And if you have something that is not entertaining, you're failing at your mission. And that's my point with Carmella, is you have women's wrestlers in this division like Charlotte Flair, who is technically sound, who can high fly. You have Becky Lynch, who is technically sound. You have Asuka, who is an amazing brawler. Naomi, who is incredibly athletic. And this is who has the belt. And that does not bode well with me. And so I actually got on Twitter during the match, and I was like, this woman cannot wrestle at all, and blah, blah, blah. And so of all people, Carmella herself responds and says something to the extent of, well, maybe if you change your profile pic, people would take you more seriously, because the end of my tweet was, maybe if you refine your craft, people would take you more seriously. Well, when you can get on Twitter and the only thing you can say about somebody is change your profile pic, honey, I was born with this face. There's nothing I can do about it. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent to somebody, it is what it is. There is a lot you can do to improve your wrestling acumen. You can get in the ring with somebody who knows more than you, and you can learn how to do the technical moves. You can practice do the high-flying moves. You can spend that time outside of the ring trying to get better inside of the ring. So to take cheap shots at the way somebody looks it really shows who you are, my dear. Because I'll be honest, I defended the fact that I don't know you personally, and I have nothing against you personally. You could be the sweetest person on the planet, but you're clearly not. So you want to get on there and take a cheap shot. Okay, well, let me take a cheap shot. You are a twig with fake looking lips. It has zero personality. You act like a kid, and you have zero wrestling acumen, which you could do something about if you were a little bit more dedicated to your craft. So please, take all the cheap shots you want. It's not going to change the fact that a lot of people don't think you can wrestle. That's why the past 2 SmackDowns, the crowd has been chanting, "You can't wrestle." You make it a joke. Yeah, you're getting a paycheck. Congratulations. No one can fault you for getting ahead. I don't fault you for that at all. But as a fan to watch WWE, Last Word Entertainment, I want it to be entertaining, and you are not. So come at me with what you've got. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't make you any better in the ring. And I had a few people respond, Mela fans, saying, well, you know, if you're criticizing her, why don't you get in the ring? Well, if I didn't have health issues, I might try. But that kind of prevents me from doing a lot, including working right now. So health issues kind of come into play there. So Carmella pulls out the win over Charlotte Flair, and that's what disgusted me. And I know that Charlotte has come to Carmella's defense before, and I've even responded to Charlotte, who I have all the respect in the world for, as a performer, is that, you know, I understand she's trying to defend her fellow coworker, and, you know, honestly, Carmella could be the nicest person in the world. I don't know. She could just be pissed off because people are talking about her wrestling ability on Twitter. Well, people are going to talk, hon. As long as you're in that ring and you cannot perform, people are going to talk. That's a fact of life. But yeah, I responded to Charlotte even. I was like, you know, I understand you're defending Carmella, and you know that's your coworker. You guys might even be tight, whatever. But as a fan, she's just not in the league of the likes of a Charlotte or a Becky or an Asuka or a Naomi. She's just not. So yeah, I was really disappointed with that match. I was really disappointed with that match because I was even paying attention with an open mind, especially after the Nia Jax match, which I thought was much better than Nia's done lately. I walked into this with an open mind thinking, okay, let's see what Carmella does, and it was literally the same thing. Slapping, pulling hair, running away, a lot of screaming, no real wrestling talent whatsoever. None. And people are like, oh, it's heel heat, it's heel heat. No, it's lack of talent. Go back to the Attitude Era and watch the heels there. They got heel heat. She gets you cannot wrestle or perform in the ring heat. There is a massive difference. So that being said, you go into the match now with Nakamura and AJ Styles. This is a no DQ match. And it was a decent match. I don't think it was as good as their last match. They had some cool spots. Both of them had cool spots, but really at the end is what kind of ruined it for me. Um, Only because they've done it too much already, I think. You had Shinsuke Nakamura hit AJ with a low blow yet again. I mean, they're doing the low blow thing to death. They really are. They're making it his signature move, and that's stupid. So they're both down in the ring and they both get counted out. So in a no DQ match, they both get counted out. It's a fucking no DQ match. So they really screwed the pooch on that one. Up next, Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. You had your typical big guys points, which was cool. I love seeing Braun Strowman. I've always liked Braun Strowman. He's actually got a lot more personality for a big guy than a lot of big guys have, and so I really appreciate that. And I'm talking about the really big guys. I'm talking about the giant guys. So it's always cool to see. And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I'm a huge fan of both of them. So it was a decent match. Again, I don't think there was anything that really stood out to me as a hell of a spot. Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley go over, and I think the biggest part of this match was the end of it, where Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley are in the ring, and Kevin Owens gets stuck in there, and Braun Strowman hits Owens with the power slam, and Strowman runs out, grabs Sami Zayn, Bobby Lashley hits Sami Zayn, and there you go. So that leaves the last match of the night, Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns. And it's hard for me because Roman Reigns gets a lot of heat. I'm not as down on Roman Reigns as a lot of people are. I've said that a lot of times before. I think that he can perform in the ring. I think his matches are entertaining. And I think one of the biggest things as far as in-ring is if you do the same few moves over and over and over and over and over and over and over, it doesn't matter who you are, eventually it's going to get stale. You have to reinvent your repertoire. And I think it's time that maybe Reigns started incorporating some new moves. Because I'm just speculating here, but the fans really seem to turn on him, and they're chanting boring in the ring and stuff like that. And I honestly think it's a little bit unfair with Reigns. He is not the greatest at promo work, but there are times when he shows improvement, and then there's times where he backslides. And but in the ring, I mean, I don't know that there's been a match really that I've been like, this is really boring, honestly. I think the crowd is a little bit overly critical on Reigns sometimes. But Samoa Joe is a fucking machine. This guy is an animal, and he has a great moveset. A very wide-ranging moveset as well. So the match was a hard-hitting affair. At the end, Reigns finally does a quick turn, hits Samoa Joe with a spear, and gets the win. And it's hard for me because Reigns has just come off of 2 major losses against Brock Lesnar. He could use the win. But then you have Samoa Joe, who's just coming back, and he gets the L. I mean, that kind of hurts him in a big way. I mean, Joe, I think, is always going to be over, but I'm surprised that WWE isn't utilizing him a little bit more than they are. So, that's pretty interesting. So anyway, that's Backlash. It's a tough one for me because Bayley versus Riot, decent. Miz versus Rollins, really good. Alexa Bliss versus Nia, better than I thought it was going to be. Orton versus Jeff was, like I said, decent. Then the show, I mean, other than Daniel Bryan and Big Cass, just took a huge nosedive for me. And it's really hard for me to rate because, like, if I'm giving my opinion, I mean, I'd like to say, okay, maybe it was like a halfway point, like a 5 out of 10. But honestly, I don't know that it was, because that last half of the show, it really took a nosedive. The whole Elias bit where the New Day, Rusev Day, No Way Jose, and Bobby Roode, could have done without that entirely. Carmella going over Charlotte just disgusted me. The AJ Styles Nakamura match, it's a fucking no DQ and they get a count out. The Strowman, Lashley, Owens, Zayn match it wasn't bad, but it didn't necessarily do anything for me. And then the last match was kind of the same way. So I think I have to give this a 4 out of 10. I think the biggest highlight of the match was The Miz versus Rollins. And Rollins has been really, really on fire in the last few months. And he seems to not be able to have a bad match. The Miz really overperformed, I think. I think he did very, very well. So that's where I'm going to leave off with Backlash. Sorry for the rant in the middle with talking about Carmella, but the match kind of just infuriated me as a fan. And when I took to Twitter and she actually had to come back and start talking about the way I look, hun, trust me, you're no prize. I know I'm not. But I'm not trying to be. And I'm not a wrestler. I'm not a part of WWE, and I'm not a champion on WWE TV. And that's a world of difference. You are. So that's where that lies. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed the review, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackwitz. Kaged Nation out.